All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast, your resource for helping you break free of the stressful, dogmatic diet and exercise rat race. My name is Matt Schifferle, founder of the Red Delta Project and author of the book Fitness Independence. I'm sitting here today with my good friend Laurence. We've been chatting back and forth quite a bit on email and a little bit on YouTube and stuff, and he's got a lot of good experience and information that he's gleaned over years of staying in shape, training, and making a few mistakes, I'm sure. And I invited him here on the podcast to share his experience so that you, too, may benefit from some of the things he's learned. So, Laurence, my man, thank you very much for coming on. Welcome to the Red Delta Project podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. It's a great opportunity. I like sharing my story. I've been doing it on YouTube for a while now, and anyone who's interested in fitness, I love to talk to.
Very good. So tell us a little bit of the backstory. How long have you been interested in what you're doing? How has it changed over the years?
Well, it's certainly changed a lot over the years. I mean, I was fortunate. I lived in a small town, and I was a fairly active kid. Like I was telling you earlier, I was never an athletic kid by any means. I didn't really join any of the school teams or any of the sports at all that way, but I definitely was outside every day playing with the other kids, and I loved to ride my bike. And I delivered newspapers, and it was a small town, so you pretty much did the whole town. So you got a good walk in every day doing that. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until I got a little bit older, I was into my late teens, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was starting to get big, and the Rambo movies came out, and Rocky, and started to get excited about all of those movies and the physiques that they brought. So I got into weight training a bit, and it was a good learning time, I guess, but I didn't really progress much. I didn't know anything about diet or nutrition. I just, did whatever I saw everybody else doing, and didn't really make any progress. And that went off and on probably till I was into my 30s, and there was no real big change during that time other than I got married and started to have kids and settled down with life. And I still enjoyed doing stuff and being outside, so I kind of moved more into mountain biking, away from the weight training. Wasn't really accomplishing anything with the weight training, so kind of fell to the wayside. But a lot of that other things started happening in my life that time too, that were, I guess you could say negative. I don't really like using that word, negative, because kind of, you live your life the way it is, and you learn from everything that happens, right? But I wasn't eating right, and your weight starts to go up as life goes on, and your focus becomes less on getting fit and trying to build your family and your home and get everything else going that way. But the real game changer for me actually came with my divorce. So at that point in time, life really went the wrong way. I wasn't really doing the right things before, but then everything really kind of fell apart. I was busy with the kids. I had to cook for them now. It was something I never had to do before, was cook. And not much of a cook. And I really fed them the wrong things. I really relied on processed food, as I was telling you before, to give them some variety, which, of course, is a ridiculous concept when you think about it now. But at the time, it seemed like a good idea.
Well, it sounds like you kind of had a lot land in your lap, and it was kind of like you had to learn a lot on the fly, and there wasn't exactly a whole lot of resources that you're turning to. It's like, well, this is how you handle these situations. It's kind of like you're juggling everything in the air and trying not to let anything land.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed like the simplest thing to do, right? I could either learn how to cook, or I could throw this in the microwave or the oven that was already pre-done. It seemed like a winning option at the time, but yeah, not so much.
So what made you start to transition away from that a little bit?
In all honesty, it was my son. He decided he wanted to start going to the gym. He broke up with a girl, and she left him for one of the more buffy kind of jock guys, right? So that was it. He wanted a six-pack, and he wanted to get into shape. So I thought, well, let's go to the gym. He wasn't quite 16 yet, so had to work out with me anyway. So we both got a gym membership and started working out. It was pretty simple, full-body routine. And I started to read some fitness magazines around the same time. I used to read fitness magazines before, but obviously it wasn't sinking in. And I started to adjust my diet, and I didn't have it right on the mark, but I started to eat a bit more protein, doing a bit more on eating more vegetables and stuff. And my body started to change and transform. And over that probably 6 months that we were going to the gym, I started seeing some changes. I mean, I wasn't, I didn't look like I did now, but there was definitely some changes, and it kind of got me re-hooked. And then afterwards, my son, he kind of lost interest there for a little bit. And so I ended up finding a workout I could do at home, kind of a HIIT-style thing. It was called a Spartacus Workout. It was actually in men's fitness there. Mm-hmm. And it was like 40 seconds of work time, 20-second rest. It was weight training still, but a little lighter weight, more HIIT training. And I really enjoyed being able to work out at home, saving that time driving to and from the gym. So that actually started me with timed workouts, and that's something to this day is a bit of a thing for me, I guess.
You like going
I don't
by the
always
clock?
do timed workouts in like a HIIT style, but I always make sure I really control my rest times, because especially training at home, you don't always have the luxury of unlimited weights to work with. So by controlling and manipulating your rest times of it, you can manipulate the intensity of your workouts a little bit too. Mm-hmm. And then I guess about that time there, that's the first time I really got what I guess you'd call shredded. Got the whole six-pack and everything going. I pretty much trimmed right down to just eating meat and vegetables. And it wasn't really a balanced diet. It was a little bit off in left field a little bit. And I know it's kind of like the first stage, and that was actually something I wanted to ask you about. It was kind of like the first stage of your diet philosophy, except I was at the extreme end, right?
Yep.
Because I was into the meat and vegetable thing. I got that figured out, and that was pretty much all I ate. And like I said, it worked. But I was missing the mark a bit nutritionally, and I was kind of starving myself, which isn't cool. So just out of curiosity, how did you start? Like, how did you develop your diet philosophy as I'm starting to head into that part of my story?
Yeah, well, largely how you did it. I think a lot of times we end up like on a pendulum back and forth where we go from one end of the spectrum where we don't really have much of a game plan or a regimen, and it's just whatever's easiest. Oftentimes that happens when life gets a little bit more stressful and we've got our plate full of other responsibilities. So it's like, well, whatever's easiest. And usually whatever's easiest at that time ends up being a lot of processed foods, a lot of junk foods, not a lot of plant-based foods, that sort of thing. And that's when we start going downhill. So then what ends up happening is we're like, I can't keep doing this. So we go in the other direction. And there's a lot of very extreme ways to do things, because when we're in a stressful situation of like, I don't like this about me, I don't like this about my body, I want to make some changes quickly as possible, the extreme stuff is very tempting. And so we go to the other end of the pendulum swings to the other side. And yeah, it can result in some pretty good transformation, but the initial stages are about transforming the body. The long-term approach is about maintaining the body and keeping it healthy. And so when you look back on it from both ends of that pendulum, you start to realize, well, they're different scenarios, but neither one is a good long-term plan or healthy for different reasons. Where one is healthy, the other's unhealthy, and so on. So then you start asking yourself, well, where's the middle ground? What's supposed to be a better option for just keeping me healthier in the long term? And unfortunately, there's not a lot of information out there, because most of the stuff out there is about you're either at one end of the spectrum or the other. And so people just get caught bouncing back and forth, up and down and right and wrong and that sort of thing. And traveling back and forth so much is in itself not very healthy. Even though we're in a period of transition when you're going from one end to the other, we want to be in a balanced state. And so that's where my mind was always thinking, like, all right, so what would be a balanced approach, more like a sane approach, lead us? And that's usually the driving force behind a lot of my nutritional stuff now is, what do we do that's very practical, very sensible, and not only good for us, but just good for our life in general? Now, what are you doing as far as your general meals on a daily basis right now? How is your dietary approach looking these days?
Okay, from then it's still related to then, I guess. I eat a fairly large breakfast seven days a week. I'm a big breakfast and dinner guy. Mm-hmm. I think meal frequency is something I don't get too uptight about, even when other people ask me about it. During the week, I am a 6 small meal day guy, but if somebody only wants to eat 3 meals or 2 meals a day, it's kind of more of a matter of what works for them. Mm-hmm. I have a fairly high calorie demand, so spreading it out helps a little bit that way too.
Sure.
But I mean, you get somebody who doesn't eat a lot of food and trying to eat 100 calories at a time or 200 calories at a time, almost not eating anything, right? So it doesn't seem very practical. So I definitely eat a lot of small meals right now, and then on the weekends I tend to eat maybe 3 or 4 meals as opposed to 6, just because I don't have regimented coffee breaks on the weekends, right? So I don't have that scheduled time to stop. But I prep for the whole week, so I cook for the whole week, my dinners and everything. And I say I prep, but Rosita, she does most of the prep now. I used to do it, but she's inherited it now. So, but anyway, I prep all my food for the week, so my entire Monday to Friday is pre-planned. I mean, I have similar things I like to eat on the weekend too, so while there's more variety on the weekend, they're similar foods. But definitely now, I mean, it doesn't bother me if I don't usually eat a lot of sweets or any sweets during the week, but on the weekend, it's not unusual to have a dessert once or twice on the weekend. Breads are another thing that I probably would never have had at one point in time, whereas now I probably have bread every week. Not every day, but every week for sure. And starchy carbs like potatoes and stuff, I eat daily. Mm-hmm. That sort of thing I find just helps to fill you up and kind of sticks with you, right?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because there was a period, a very brief period, but period nonetheless in my life where I did kind of the meat veggie thing like what you were talking about, where a lot of whole, just very simple foods, a lot of meat, a lot of veggie, a lot of oils. And I kept being told over and over that, like, fat is what fills you up, protein is what fills you up and stuff. And during that period, like, I found like I could not get enough protein and fat sourced foods to fill up. It was like I was just in this constant state of hunger no matter what I ate. But then whenever I would, quote, slip up and I would have a little bit more of the starchy carbs with my meal, I would be satisfied a heck of a lot sooner and it would stick with me longer. And my experience has been that it's not just fat or protein or carbs or any one thing that helps us fill. It's the balance of the meal that helps us feel satisfied and full. And if you have a big piece of it missing, doesn't really matter what the piece is, but if you go a long period of time with either fat or protein or carbohydrate missing, then that's going to leave you less satisfied and keep your appetites unfulfilled on all fronts. Is that something what you found, or what's your experience been?
Yeah, and I guess my theory on it was more that fats are very important. I try to never let them be more than 30% of my diet, and I love fatty foods, so that's a bit of a weakness of mine, so you're hitting on a weak point of mine, so it's one I have to kind of keep an eye on and regulate. But it's also very calorie dense, so you're not getting a lot of quantity of food for the amount of calories, whereas with carbohydrates, it's not as calorie dense. You're actually getting a larger volume of food so that you tend to feel fuller, and that's kind of my take on it. And obviously you need to balance everything, and the harder you train and the leaner you get, the more carbohydrates you really need. It was my experience, I think, when I was heavier, and sadly enough, I was going to send you a couple photos, but sadly enough, I recently was reading about obesity and discovered I actually would have qualified as being obese at one point in time. I never would have called myself obese, in all honesty.
Well, you're certainly the furthest from it now.
Sorry?
You're certainly the furthest from it now. I'm watching you here on the screen, and I'm like, wow, you are a very lean dude. Not skinny, but very lean.
Yeah, weight loss is certainly not something I worry about now. I mean, I've gained almost 8 pounds from last summer, and I have a weight gain plan for, into when I'm over 55, and then I'll reassess then. So it's a slow, steady, weight gain kind of program that I'm on, and it's been working fairly well. I mean, I've gained some body fat since last summer, but I'm not concerned about that little bit of fat. I'd gotten too lean last summer, and it was just because I was super busy, and I was eating lots of food, but I had to add another 300 or 400 calories a day just because the amount of effort I was putting into it was more than the calories coming in, right? So I had to add food to get my weight back up a bit more. But, that volume of food I think is a big deal. But I do think that when people are first starting, and even when I first started, I think cutting back on the carbs a little extra is a good thing. Just helps to get that whole insulin balance going. But in the big picture, it's, you got to, like you say, you got to have that balance of everything.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very smart and practical approach, because we got to remember that when we are very small, like let's say you take someone who is, very skinny, low body fat, but also low muscle mass. Then you've got someone on the other end of the spectrum where a lot of muscle mass, but also a lot of fat, and then everything in between. The amount of fat and muscle that you're carrying is really going to have an influence on what your body can handle well when it comes to your nutrition. So as your body changes, it's important to think, well, if I'm different, maybe my diet should be a little bit different, because what I used to have a lot of, I now have less of. What I used to have less of, I now have a lot of. And it's not like this is the best diet for everybody, or if, you were healthier eating very low carbohydrate or little food when you're overweight, that doesn't necessarily mean that's still going to be the healthiest for you when you're much leaner, and vice versa. And I think it's important to really recognize that as our bodies go through their transformations.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that. And I don't know anything enough about this topic, so I shouldn't even talk about it. But I'm going to throw it out there because it's on my list of things to research. I don't know if you remember back in the 70s. I'm not sure how much younger you are. You're in your 30s?
I'm 40, so.
See,
yeah.
Well, obviously the fitness lifestyle's working for you. I had you getting a little younger. Anyway, back, I think it was in the 70s, 60 Minutes did a video on these people called the Skinnies. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whatever happened to them, but they believed that longevity, and it works a little bit with mice, and I've seen some studies with monkeys, but longevity is based on calorie deprivation. Mm-hmm. And I want to look into that more, simply because personally, I have a prejudice. I don't believe it, right? It doesn't make sense. But I do believe that if you eat too much, it's going to shorten your life. There's tons of studies that support that. So this whole thing seems to be starting to come back around about depriving yourself a little bit of calories, and it's going to lengthen your life. And I really want to do some research on that, do a video of it on my channel at some point in time. And like I said, I have a prejudice going in because I think it's ridiculous. But I'd love to see what happened, if I could find out what happened to those people that were in that 60-minute special. Mm-hmm. That would be just phenomenal. Anyway, that was totally off topic. We were just talking about how things change as you go, because at some point in time you have to start eating more. When I tracked my calories fairly well after I got going. When I first started, I was eating 1,800 calories a day, which wasn't enough, but that's what I was eating the first time I got really shredded. Whereas now I maintain my weight at about 2,800 calories a day. Mm-hmm. So it's changed a lot, and it's funny because most people think you always have to eat less as you age, but that's not necessarily true, right? Because back in my mid-40s, I was eating almost 1,000 calories less a day than what my body requires now. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to go down as you age if your fitness level goes up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many variables to it, and I think especially when it comes to a lot of dietary information out there, it's so easy to get fixated on one variable, like how much do you exercise, or how much do you weigh, or what age you are, and they're like, well, if this is that variable, then this is how much you should eat, and so on. But there are so many different things in our lives that are playing a role, and all of them are constantly changing. So like you said, like you can have someone who's on paper, it looks like they should be eating a lot more, but they're better off eating less. But there are other people where on paper they're older, they don't have as much muscle, whatever. It's like, you shouldn't be eating quite as much. Like, I have to eat this much or else I'm going to be sick. I'm going to get so tired and run down. So it's so important. This is why I'm always saying you got to listen to the body, the signals the body's telling you. Like, if it's constantly hungry, it's not getting something it wants. But at the same time, don't stuff it full of food just because someone says, well, this is how much you should be eating. And you're like, I really don't want to eat anything right now. I'm fine. And that helps to kind of equate for all of those variables that could be constantly. Half the time, we're not even aware of these variables. It's like, I don't know, I'm just hungry, and maybe I should eat something.
Yeah. Well, I log all my food. It's like a hobby now. So, I mean, I log everything I eat because it gives me just a chance to figure out, kind of how I want to make changes as time goes on. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of people just, would have no idea how much protein or how much fats or how many carbs, or whether they're even somebody like me who has a weakness for fats. It's not till you start logging it and you say, oh, holy. Along with my love of protein, it's the fatty steaks and it's the rib steaks, not the tenderloins that I go for. And you start to realize that you really got to make a few adjustments in order to get a better overall balance. But I mean, nobody really starts that way, which is, I guess, you have the plate that you do with the protein, the vegetables, and then the other in the portion control, which of course is a better way to start, really. Mm-hmm.
So much of it just starts off with becoming more aware, because as we were saying, like when you start off and you're just going with whatever's easy, you're kind of just playing a reactive role with your diet of just getting whatever, whenever, however you can. And you're not really in control of your diet at that point. And becoming aware of what you're eating and so on is a big part of it. I had a coworker in a bike shop one time said one of the biggest reasons why a lot of dietary interventions work is it just causes people to think about what they're eating. Every time they eat, it's like, don't just grab it and eat it. Think about, like, okay, what is this? How much is this? Calories, fat, carbs, sugar is in this, and how's it going to make me feel? And just becoming more aware of that alone can make a very big difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, awareness makes all the difference in the world. I mean, you don't even know, what exactly, is a carb or a fat sometimes, or a protein. Maybe a protein and a fat would be better than saying you don't know what a carb and a fat is. But really, when you think of like nuts, carbs or fats, right? I mean, how many people really know? It's a pretty simple thing, but with that lack of awareness out there, a lot of people don't know whether they're eating something that's mainly a fat or mainly a carb, right? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk a little bit more too about your training. You do, as you were saying, a lot of timed exercises, and this is something that's kind of bounced on my radar for a while myself, where instead of like counting reps or things like that, but you're going by a timed program. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, I do it the two ways. I mean, the time program helps, especially when it's something I can do really high reps on, and I'm always trying to push it so that I set up the timer so that if I decide I'm going to do 4 sets, or I might do as many as 8 sets on an exercise, especially if it's something I can just do a ton of, like push-ups or something. Mm-hmm. And then I might actually do that, like we'll take push-ups, we'll set it up like a Tabata timer, right? So you got 20 and 10, and so 20 seconds work, 10 seconds rest. And then you try to set it up so that by the time you're getting to the end, however many sets it is you do, I mean, Tabata is traditionally 8 sets, but however many sets you decide to do, that by the end, you're hitting failure, so that you're really working hard. Another one that one really is killer on would be like bodyweight squats. If you think that you could do bodyweight squats forever, then just try to do them for time with short rests, and then try to see how many you can get within. I'm using Tabata timer now. We started with 40-20 before, but now I'm going 20-10. But you see how many bodyweight squats you can do in 20 seconds, rest 10 seconds, and then the next set, try to get the exact same amount. And try to do that for 8 sets, and you would be amazed at the amount of work you're putting in.
Yeah, I did that years ago, and I couldn't walk for 2 days. It hit my legs so hard, it blew me away. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, going by the clock, it's like a little personal trainer, because when you're doing things and it says like, all right, I do this many reps and stuff, there's a little bit more flexibility, and it's like, well, I'm a little tired, I'll rest a little bit more. But boy, when that timer is going and it goes beep, it's like someone saying go, and you just go and you react to it, versus saying like, I'll just go whenever. And it gives you so much more structure to your workout. Are you doing this largely for like building muscle, endurance, conditioning? What do you have to?
Well, you know what? Actually, I modified a little bit to build. I don't know if I want to use a Tabata timer this time. I have another series of workouts that I do where I have a 2-minute timer. It goes off every 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll actually do that for reps. And then I'm more apt to do that for 3 or 4 sets. And then I'll take a weight, or I will use a body weight exercise like dips or something that's a little more challenging for me. And I will do it for my assigned number of reps. And I use my first sets almost like warm-up sets, right?
Okay.
So if I'm going to do, say, 4 sets, and timer goes off every 2 minutes, I want to hit failure on that last set. But I try to set it up so I'm doing an equal number of reps on all 4 sets, except maybe not on the 4th set because I'll hit failure.
Sure.
So say I can do 20 reps, 4 sets of 20 reps. It's a little ambitious, of dips. So then first set, I do 20 reps. Second set, do 20 reps. Third set, I'll do 20 reps. 4th set, I will go to failure, whether that's and the goal is it should be less than 20 reps. Because if I get 22 reps, then odds are I'm going to go next time, I'm going to go 22 on the first set, 22 on the second set, and then try to do 20 and 20 on the third and fourth set. And that way I can kind of increase reps over the whole. And I find as far as building muscle, that works a little bit better. Mm-hmm. As far as overall conditioning, going for the full time, definitely it helps to shred you down a bit. And also it does, it also gives you a bit of a hormone boost, eh? You definitely get that. I don't want to Charles Poulon, he's a French-Canadian strength trainer, and I did a video on him. I hope I didn't mispronounce his last name. Anyway, he done a whole bunch of stuff on anabolic training, and he's got his whole training systems on that, and it's all based on getting that almost like sprinters, right?
Yep.
And hitting your weight training like sprinting to help give yourself a bit of a hormone boost. And it really helps you maintain your muscle mass as you get lean, and I swear I've built muscle that way too, as I've leaned up, because it sure looks like it anyway. I know your muscles get more, you see them better as you get leaner as well, but
yeah,
definitely over the years I've stayed fairly lean and kept building muscle using those systems. So
yeah, man, you're jacked. I mean, your avatar, like on YouTube and everything there, it's like, holy smokes, this guy's got a hell of a physique. And it's great to know too, like there are other ways to do this. It's not just, okay, do heavy bench press until your shoulders are screaming at you, or deadlifts until you feel like you can't keep that up anymore. But there's many different ways you can build muscle and really push yourself. And it gives you options like, well, if I don't like this, doing it this way, then I can do it this other way.
Yeah, I often compare my timed workouts to manipulating intensity, right? Mm-hmm. So, one person may need, 3 minutes between start of one set to start of the next set. And, of course, the heavier the weight is and less reps you can do, if you're doing a 2-minute timer, the longer rest you're going to get, right? If you can only do 5 reps,
sure,
then you're going to get a longer rest. If you can do 20 reps, you're going to do a shorter rest. So as you get better, you increase the intensity using the same timer if you do it in that system.
Do you have like an app or something that you like to use for your timers, or just a stopwatch?
Yeah, I do. I have to look here to see what it's called. But yeah, I definitely use it. I use an app here. Hold on, let me find it on my phone here. Quick. Seconds Pro is the one that I use. Mm-hmm. And I fantasize about one day having a website and having programs set up with a timer on there, so people could actually go right to the website and just click on it and do a workout right with the timer on there, and it kind of gives them a whole bit of a setup to work with the whole process all in one. And then, I mean, it's always nicer when you can design your own program, but they can always get some people started, right? Mm-hmm. And it works really well for body weight workouts. I mean, I started doing I usually mix, body weight with dumbbell training. I mainly train with dumbbells at home, but I just find it's another way you can ramp up your calisthenics. I do a lot more now, like archer push-ups as opposed to straight regular push-ups, just to keep my rep ranges down a little bit.
Yep.
But you can go forever. I don't know if they call them planche push-ups, but that's where you put your arms back a bit. I'd love to be able to do a planche, and I can't.
Yeah.
So I tuck planche, but I can't do a full planche. So I'm working on trying to develop strength for doing that, and it just helps keep your workout flowing. You can control your time frame of your workout. When you start, you know exactly when you're going to finish. And so even my warm-up time at the beginning is timed, right? So.
Oh, really?
I know exactly when I'm going to finish before I start, right? Because it's all just timed right through. I mean, if a guy's having a bad day, then you got to take more time, but that doesn't happen very often, not really.
Mm-hmm. It's also very good for limiting distractions too, especially like I see guys all the time in the gym where it's like they do a set and they're on their phone and they're watching TVs and they're wandering around and stuff, and man, that stuff just eats up time and it just bloats out your your workout. So it takes you like an hour to do 15 minutes of actual activity, but boy, when you're on that timer and you hit that go button for all your rounds and sets and everything, you're not getting distracted at all. You are on the ball and focused the entire time. And I think that goes a long way in helping you get a lot more out of your workouts because you're not distracted. Do you find that to be the case?
Oh, absolutely. And you get to the point where you know that timer's coming and you're dead or you're sore and you almost are dreading that beat, but as soon as it goes, then you go, right? Mm-hmm. And then at the end, you end up finding yourself looking back and deciding, what to do for your next workout right at that instant. It's like, okay, well, did I get that rep? Did I not get that rep? Was today just a little bit off? Should I? Because even sometimes you got to back off your reps. I know you've kind of got me going on form check workouts because I train by myself, so nobody knows, but I'm notoriously bad for bad form, and I have to film myself from time to time and go back and check my form. And I know you're big on the form check workouts, but sometimes when you're doing that, building the reps up, the way I like to build the reps up, you'll hit kind of a bit of a wall, and you'll find that your reps start to maybe even decrease a bit. So then I actually just kind of subtract reps off the whole thing and then make another run up. And it always seems to work if you just, take a moment to step back. You may have just had a couple really good workouts when you're really on your game and you moved up a little faster than your body was really ready. And then you just step back off the reps for a few workouts, and before you know it, you're building back up again.
So it's almost a self-regulation sort of deal where, you're not always trying to push your absolute max as hard as you can all the time, but like driving a car, sometimes you're going a little faster, sometimes you're going a little slower, and you go when you can and as you can is basically what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm always pushing for failure on that last one, but it should always be close, or always has worked for me anyway, has always worked out very close. So like I'm saying with the dips example of doing 20, 4 sets of 20 dips. Mm-hmm. So on that last set, if I had been getting my 20 and I increased it up, and I was starting to move toward doing 22. And so then I did 22 in the first two, 20 on the third, but then I found I kept doing like 15 all of a sudden on the fourth. Mm-hmm. And I kept doing 15. Then I might take those first couple reps off and go through it again, and then find myself doing maybe 18 on the last one. And I'll say, okay, well, I'll wait till I get up to 20. Then when I do my 4 sets of 20, then I'll start adding reps back in the beginning, just because I've hit that bit of a wall. So it's just a way to... In the way it's self-regulating, in the way it tells me how to mix up my reps, and then by mixing them up, you're always trying to get a little bit farther ahead. Did I explain that very well? It seemed wordy.
I think so. Yeah. It basically. So yeah, you're doing what you can where you can, but at the same time, having a little bit of variety and pushing at different times can be good. But you're always going hard, especially towards the end of the workout, is what you're saying.
Yeah, last set's always really hard, and I use it to decide what I'm going to do for the next workout. Mm-hmm. So if the reps on that last set are way lower than the other three, then I might back off, take a few reps off the other three to increase the final one a little closer, the final set, so the reps are a little bit closer. And if I'm doing, I start adding reps to that one that are higher, so it's like 24 or 25 instead of 20 on the first three, then I'll add reps to the whole previous sets to help build it up.
Very good. Very good. Well, Lauren, you have a lot of great practical information here, man. I'm really happy that you're sharing your experience with us and everything. Obviously, you've been doing this quite a while. Do you want folks to reach out to you if they have any questions, or should they just contact me directly? What would you like?
They can definitely. I have to give them my old Gmail address. I'm really close to setting up a better email address for everyone to contact me at, but obviously they can get a hold of me on my YouTube channel, Fit and 50, and then for my email address is oneshark1bite@gmail.com, and actually I used the shark name because my last name is actually Codd, so it's the same, it's a kind of a fish last name, so I thought shark was a little cooler, so I went with that.
Cool, man. Yeah, and for those, if you're listening too, I'll put links on the website where this podcast will be hosted to your YouTube channel, Gmail. Do you have any other social channels you want folks reaching out, or just the email and YouTube is best?
Those are really the best one. I mean, I have a Facebook page, which again is Fit and 50. So if you're wanting to follow me there, that'd be great. But the main stuff is definitely the YouTube channel.
Wonderful. Great. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Laurence. This has been a great learning experience for me as well. I'm sure everybody else is getting a lot out of this as well. Any last words and parting advice you'd like to spread out into the universe?
I guess for everybody who's a little bit older and thinking they can't do it anymore, I just really like to encourage people just to get started, get training. You might not even really know exactly what you're doing, but just get started because it can be done at any age. I didn't start till I was 45, so I was divorced and out of shape and overweight at 45, and I just started and I learned slowly, kept figuring things out, figuring out what worked best for me, and I just want everyone to know it's possible and anybody can do it.
Right. Wonderful words of encouragement, and like I said, we got real-world applications here, folks, real-world examples. This isn't, some 1% superstar who's got a lot of backstory of drugs or plastic surgery going on behind the curtain like you often hear a lot with the celebrity success stories. This is real, down-home, honest experience and advice here, folks, and that's what we're all about here at the Red Delta Project podcast. So again, if you have questions and stuff, you can reach out to me, reddeltaproject@gmail.com. Check out the post on the blog for contact information here for Laurence. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe for the podcast as well. I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you very much, Laurence. Be fit.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yep. And be fit, live free.